It's the invisible chain holding you back from your true potential. But here's the truth most people miss. You can't defeat what you don't understand. Today, I'm going to reveal the secret Carl Jung taught us about fear, because once you understand it, you can finally break free and step into the life you were meant to live. Fear is not a monster sent to destroy you. It is a messenger sent to awaken you. It does not arrive by accident. It appears exactly at the places where your soul is being invited to grow, where your comfort is being stretched, where your heart is being called towards something greater than what it has known before. The trembling you feel, the uneasiness in your chest, the restless thoughts that keep you awake at night, these are not signs of weakness. They are signs that something within you is being stirred, something that refuses to remain small, silent, or hidden any longer. Sometimes fear feels overwhelming, like a shadow that follows you everywhere. It whispers doubts into your mind. Asterisk, what if you fail? What if you lose? What if you are not enough? Asterisk, and in those moments it feels easier to run, to shrink, to pretend you never cared in the first place. But deep inside, beneath the noise of anxiety and uncertainty, there is a quiet truth. Fear only guards the doors that lead to transformation. Nothing that truly changes you comes without resistance. Nothing that elevates your soul comes without discomfort. Even in faith, fear has meaning. Many times what you call fear is actually the moment your heart becomes aware of its dependence on Allah. It is the moment you realize your control is limited, your knowledge is incomplete, and your strength alone is not enough. Fear humbles you. It softens your arrogance. It reminds you that you are a creation standing before the Creator, fragile yet deeply cared for. When Prophet Ibrahim stood before the fire, when Prophet Musa faced the sea with an army behind him, when Prophet Yunus sat in the darkness of the whale's belly, fear existed. But so did divine purpose. Fear did not mean abandonment. Fear was the space where trust in Allah became real, where reliance replaced illusion, where the heart learned surrender. And sometimes your fear is simply your soul recognizing responsibility, the responsibility to become who you were meant to be. Growth is heavy. Change is painful. Letting go of old identities feels like losing pieces of yourself. That is why fear rises, because transformation is not gentle. It shakes you. It exposes your wounds. It forces you to confront memories you buried, insecurities you hid, and dreams you were too afraid to claim. You feel fear when you are about to speak your truth after years of silence, when you stand at the edge of a decision that could change your entire life, when you realize that staying the same is more painful than stepping into the unknown. Your heart beats faster because it senses significance. Your chest tightens because something sacred is at stake. Fear is the emotional signal that you are standing at the border between who you have been and who you are becoming. And there is something deeply spiritual about that trembling moment. Because when fear strips away your certainty, it leaves you with nothing but sincerity. Your prayers become deeper, your tears become more honest. Your whispers to Allah become heavier with meaning. In fear, you stop pretending you are self-sufficient. You remember you are guided, protected, and seen even when you do not understand what lies ahead. Fear touches the most sensitive parts of your heart, because growth is never just external. It is an inner reshaping of identity, belief, and purpose. It presses on old wounds, the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of not being loved, the fear of being alone. It brings all of them to the surface, not to torture you, but to show you what still needs healing. Because what you refuse to face continues to control you silently, shaping your decisions, limiting your courage, shrinking your destiny. Every time fear appears, it is pointing somewhere meaningful, somewhere sacred, somewhere that holds a lesson your soul cannot learn any other way. It is not random discomfort, it is precise, intentional pressure shaping you like heat shapes metal, like trials refine faith, like hardship purifies the heart until what remains is stronger, clearer, more sincere. And if you listen closely, beneath the racing thoughts and the emotional storm, fear is not shouting at you to stop. It is whispering that something important is waiting just beyond what feels safe, something that requires trust, surrender, courage, and the willingness to walk forward even while your heart is still trembling. Avoidance feels safe, but it is only a temporary shelter built on illusion. When you avoid something that frightens you, you are not removing it from your life, you are only pushing it deeper into the shadows of your mind, where it grows stronger, more mysterious, and more powerful. What you refuse to understand begins to control you silently. It shapes your reactions, your choices, your limits, without ever asking your permission. Understanding, on the other hand, requires courage. It asks you to pause instead of run, to look instead of turn away, to feel instead of numb yourself. And that is painful, because understanding exposes truth. It removes excuses. It reveals what is real beneath the layers of distraction you built to protect yourself. When something remains unknown, the mind magnifies it. Fear becomes larger than reality. Anxiety becomes heavier than the situation itself. But when you step closer, when you examine what you fear, when you ask asterisk, why does this shake me so deeply? Asterisk, something begins to shift. The fog starts to lift. The imagined power weakens. What once looked overwhelming becomes something you can observe, name, and face. Even spiritually, avoidance distances the heart from growth. Allah does not place challenges in your path without wisdom. Every difficulty carries meaning, every fear carries a lesson, every discomfort carries an invitation to deeper awareness. When you avoid what frightens you, you may also be avoiding the very experience meant to strengthen your faith, refine your patience, and awaken your dependence on Him. Sometimes what you avoid is not the situation itself, but what it reveals about you. Old wounds, hidden insecurities, unspoken pain, memories you buried because they hurt too much to hold. Understanding means reopening doors you tried to seal shut. It means allowing yourself to feel emotions you thought you had escaped. And that can feel unbearable, like standing face to face with parts of yourself you never wanted to meet again. But healing has never come from denial. Growth has never come from ignorance. Light only enters where darkness is uncovered. Think about the moments when your heart races without explanation, when your chest tightens before a decision, when something inside you whispers asterisk, stay where you are. Don't risk it. Don't look deeper. Asterisk, that inner resistance is not random. It is a signal that something meaningful lies beneath the surface, something unfinished, something unresolved, something waiting to be understood so it can finally release its grip on you. And there is a sacred vulnerability in choosing understanding, because when you seek to comprehend what frightens you, you admit that you do not have full control, that you need guidance, that you are willing to learn. This humility softens the heart. It opens the soul. It turns fear into a doorway instead of a wall. The prophets faced uncertainty, loss, isolation, and overwhelming trials, yet they did not escape their realities. They turned toward them with awareness, with reflection, with trust. They sought meaning even in pain, because understanding transforms suffering into purpose and confusion into clarity. Avoidance keeps wounds hidden but unhealed. Understanding may reopen them, but only so they can finally breathe, finally release, finally transform into strength. When you begin to understand what you fear, you begin to see its structure, its triggers, its roots, its patterns. And slowly, the thing that once controlled your emotions loses its authority, not because it disappeared, but because it is no longer unknown. It is no longer mysterious. It is no longer a shadow without shape. And in that moment of awareness, when you finally see clearly what once terrified you, something shifts deep within your heart. Something quiet, something powerful, something that makes running no longer feel necessary, something that makes facing it feel possible, something that makes you realize how long you lived under the weight of something you never truly stopped to understand, something that was waiting all along for you to turn toward it instead of away from it, something that was never asking you to escape, only to see, to feel, to recognize, to learn, to surrender, to grow. Fear rarely begins in reality. It begins in imagination. Long before anything actually happens, the mind starts writing stories, vivid, detailed, emotionally charged stories about what asterisk might asterisk go wrong, what asterisk could asterisk fall apart, what asterisk may asterisk break your heart. And the strange thing is, your body responds to these imagined stories as if they are already real. Your chest tightens, your breath shortens, your thoughts spiral. Not because danger is present, but because your mind has painted a picture so powerful that your heart believes it without question. The human mind is a storyteller by nature. It tries to predict, to prepare, to protect. But when it is ruled by insecurity or past pain, its stories become distorted. A small uncertainty becomes a catastrophe. A simple risk becomes total ruin. One past disappointment becomes proof that failure is inevitable. The mind gathers fragments of memory, emotion, and assumption, and weaves them into a narrative that feels undeniable. You are not always afraid of what is happening. You are afraid of what you asterisk believe will happen asterisk. And belief is powerful. A story repeated enough times begins to feel like truth. You tell yourself you are not capable, and your body hesitates. You tell yourself people will reject you, and your voice weakens before you even speak. You tell yourself you will fail, and your effort collapses before it fully begins. Many fears are not born from the present moment, they are echoes of the past mixed with uncertainty about the future. A memory of pain becomes a prediction of repetition. A wound that has not healed becomes a lens through which you see everything. The mind says, asterisk, it hurt before, so it will hurt again. Asterisk, and slowly, without realizing it, you begin living inside a story written by fear rather than truth. This is why two people can face the same situation, yet one feels calm while the other feels terrified. The difference is not reality, the difference is interpretation. One mind sees possibility, the other sees danger. One tells a story of growth, the other tells a story of loss. And spiritually, this reveals something profound about the human heart. Allah created reality, but the mind often creates illusions. When trust in Him weakens, imagination fills the space with worry. When certainty in His wisdom fades, the mind rushes to predict disaster. You begin to believe that outcomes depend entirely on your control. And because your control is limited, fear multiplies. But when the heart remembers that Allah is Al-Hakim, the most wise, Al-Rahman, the most merciful, Al-Wakil, the ultimate trustee, the stories begin to change. The mind may still imagine outcomes, but the soul whispers a deeper truth. Nothing unfolds without purpose. Nothing happens outside divine knowledge. Nothing reaches you except what was already written with wisdom beyond your understanding. Yet the emotional struggle remains real, because even when faith exists, the mind can still replay painful memories, still imagine rejection, still create scenes of loss so vivid they feel unbearable. You might lie awake at night replaying conversations that never happened, preparing for disasters that never came, grieving endings that were never written. And the emotional weight of those imagined stories can be crushing. Tears fall for events that have not occurred. Anxiety drains energy from moments that are still safe. The heart suffers not from reality, but from the mind's relentless storytelling. Sometimes these stories protect wounds you never fully healed. The fear of being abandoned again, misunderstood again, humiliated again, broken again. So the mind builds narratives to prevent risk. It says, asterisk, don't try, don't trust, don't hope too much, don't step forward, stay where pain cannot reach you again. Asterisk, but in protecting you from imagined pain, these stories quietly steal real life from you. They make you hesitate when opportunity appears. They make you doubt when strength is required. They make you retreat when your soul longs to expand. And deep inside, beneath all the noise, there is a silent awareness that many of these fears are built from thoughts, not truth, from memory, not reality, from imagination, not certainty. Yet they still feel heavy. They still feel convincing. They still feel real enough to shape your choices, your emotions, your destiny. Because the most powerful prison is not built from walls. It is built from the stories you repeat inside your own mind. Stories shaped by pain, by doubt, by uncertainty. Stories that grow stronger each time they are believed, each time they are rehearsed, each time they are allowed to define what you think is possible, each time they whisper that danger is everywhere, that loss is inevitable, that you are fragile, that you are not ready, that you are not enough, that the worst outcome is always waiting just ahead, that safety only exists in shrinking, in silence, in never stepping beyond the limits drawn by imagination. Control does not come from force. It comes from awareness. Most people try to fight their fear, silence it, overpower it, or escape it. But what you fight often fights back harder. What you suppress grows louder in the dark. What you resist with tension only tightens its grip on your heart. Observation is different. Observation is quiet strength. It is the ability to step back internally and simply asterisk watch. Asterisk what is happening within you without panic, without shame, without the desperate need to make it disappear. When fear rises, your first instinct is to react. Your thoughts race, your body stiffens, your emotions surge like a storm you cannot control. But in that moment, something powerful becomes possible. You can choose to witness instead of react. You can notice your breathing becoming shallow. You can feel the tension in your chest. You can observe the thoughts forming, the predictions, the worries, the memories replaying themselves. And instead of saying, asterisk, this is terrible, I must stop this, something is wrong with me, asterisk, you simply say, asterisk is fear, and I am watching it. Asterisk, that shift changes everything. Because the moment you observe something, you are no longer fully inside it. You are no longer drowning in the wave, you are seeing the wave move. And when you can see clearly, you can respond consciously instead of reacting blindly. Fear feeds on judgment. The moment you label it as weakness, as failure, as something shameful, it becomes heavier. You begin fearing the fear itself. You panic about panicking. You feel anxious about feeling anxious. And the cycle tightens like a knot pulling deeper into your chest. But when you remove judgment, fear loses its emotional fuel. When you stop calling it weakness, stop calling it failure, stop treating it as something that should not exist, it softens. It becomes an experience rather than an identity, a passing state rather than a permanent condition. Observation allows space, and in that space clarity is born. You begin to notice patterns. What triggers your fear? How it moves through your body? How long it stays? How it rises, peaks, and eventually falls if you do not resist it. You start to realize something profound. Fear is not endless. It is not permanent. It is a wave with a rhythm, a sensation with a lifespan. And the more you watch it calmly, the more familiar it becomes. What was once overwhelming becomes recognizable. What was once chaotic becomes predictable. And what is predictable becomes manageable. There is also a deep spiritual stillness in observation. When you watch your fear without judgment, you practice surrender, not surrender to fear, but surrender to awareness itself. You acknowledge that emotions pass through you, but they do not define your essence. You become the witness of your inner world, not the prisoner of it. In that witnessing, your heart slows, your breath deepens. Your nervous system begins to understand that not every surge of fear is danger. Sometimes it is simply sensation moving through the body. Mastery does not mean fear disappears. Mastery means fear appears, and you remain steady enough to watch it, to feel it without collapsing, to notice it without becoming it, to experience it without losing yourself inside it. And slowly, almost quietly, the relationship changes. Fear no longer commands you, it informs you. It no longer controls your actions, it becomes something you can study, understand, and move through. Because what you can calmly observe, you can gradually understand. What you understand, you can influence. And what you can influence no longer holds absolute power over you. So you keep watching, breathing, noticing, allowing, feeling the sensations rise and fall, witnessing thoughts come and go, staying present even when the intensity builds, learning the language of your inner world, moment by moment, discovering how much strength exists in still awareness, realizing how much space lies between stimulus and response, sensing the quiet control emerging not from force, but from presence, from patience, from the simple, steady act of seeing clearly what is happening within you, without turning away, without tightening, without judging, without running, just watching, just witnessing, just remaining, just aware. Courage is not the moment when fear disappears. It is the moment you decide that fear will not decide for you. It is standing in the presence of trembling, uncertainty, and doubt, and moving forward anyway. Your hands may shake, your heart may pound, your thoughts may whisper warnings from every direction, but something deeper within you rises and says, asterisk, I will not stay where I am. Asterisk, most people wait to feel fearless before they act. They believe bravery is a calm heart, steady breath, complete certainty. But that moment rarely comes, because fear is part of being human. It lives wherever something meaningful is at stake, wherever love is deep, wherever dreams are fragile, wherever change is real. True courage is born in tension. It exists when your body wants to retreat, but your soul wants to advance. It is the quiet decision to take one step forward while every instinct tells you to step back. It is speaking when your voice feels trapped in your throat, trying again when failure still aches in your memory, trusting when past pain tells you to close your heart forever. There is something deeply sacred about acting while afraid, because in that moment you are no longer relying only on comfort, you are relying on faith. Faith that strength will meet you in motion. Faith that Allah sees your effort even when outcomes are uncertain. Faith that trembling does not mean weakness, it means you are standing at the edge of growth. The prophets knew fear, yet they moved. Their hearts felt the weight of uncertainty, the magnitude of responsibility, the loneliness of difficult paths. Yet they did not freeze. They acted with trust even when clarity was incomplete. Because courage is not built from guarantees. It is built from reliance on something greater than your own limited control. Emotionally, courage is not clean or graceful. It is messy, raw, deeply human. It is walking into conversations that may break your heart, choosing honesty when silence feels safer, letting go of what is familiar even when the unknown terrifies you. It is the tears you wipe away before taking another step, the prayers whispered under your breath, when strength feels distant, the silent battle no one sees while you keep moving forward on the outside. And sometimes courage feels small, not dramatic, not heroic in appearance, just quiet persistence. Getting up when your chest still feels heavy, trying again when doubt still lingers, showing up when part of you wants to disappear. These moments may seem ordinary, but they are profound acts of bravery unfolding in silence. Fear does not vanish when you are courageous. It walks beside you. It reminds you what could go wrong. But courage changes the relationship. Fear becomes background noise instead of command, a sensation instead of a barrier, a presence, but not the authority. There is a powerful emotional truth hidden here. You do not need to feel ready to begin. You do not need to feel strong to act strong. Strength often arrives asterisk because asterisk you move while feeling weak. Confidence often grows asterisk after asterisk you face what scared you. Peace often comes asterisk after asterisk you walk through uncertainty instead of avoiding it. And spiritually, every step taken in fear but grounded in trust carries meaning beyond what you can see. Allah does not measure only outcomes, He sees effort, intention, the silent struggle inside your chest, the courage it takes to act when your heart is unsettled, even when your voice shakes, even when your path feels unclear, even when your steps feel small. Movement itself becomes an act of reliance, an act of surrender, an act of faith in motion. Courage is not the removal of fear from your life. It is the refusal to let fear remove life from you. It is choosing purpose over comfort, growth over safety, truth over silence, trust over control. It is the moment you realize that waiting for fear to disappear means waiting forever, and living fully means learning to walk with trembling, to breathe through uncertainty, to move while your heart beats loudly, to act while doubt still whispers, to rise even when you feel fragile, to step forward even when the ground feels unsteady, to keep going even while fear walks beside you, never gone, never silent, but no longer deciding the direction of your steps. Transformation is never accidental. It is born from reflection. Real change does not begin with action, it begins with awareness. Before anything shifts in your outer world, something must be seen clearly in your inner world. Something must be understood deeply, honestly, and without escape. Most people want breakthrough without reflection. They want change without self-confrontation. They want a new life while holding tightly to old patterns, old wounds, old beliefs that quietly shape every decision they make. But transformation does not grow in denial. It grows in truth, and truth requires you to pause, to look inward, to face what you have been avoiding within yourself. Reflection is not comfortable. It asks you to sit with memories you tried to forget, to examine habits you justified, to recognize fears you disguised as logic, to acknowledge pain you buried under distractions. It asks you to see not only what happened to you, but how it shaped you, how it changed the way you trust, the way you love, the way you protect yourself, the way you see your own worth. And that can feel heavy, because when you truly reflect, excuses fall away. The stories you told yourself for years begin to crack. The identity you built to survive may no longer feel aligned with who you are meant to become. Reflection gently but firmly removes illusions, and standing without illusions can feel frighteningly vulnerable. But there is something sacred about that vulnerability, because when you look inward with sincerity, you step into a space of honesty before Allah. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You stop hiding behind distractions and noise. Reflection becomes a quiet form of worship, a moment where the heart speaks truthfully, where the soul admits its confusion, its pain, its longing for guidance. In those silent moments of deep awareness, you begin to see patterns written across your life. Why certain fears repeat, why certain relationships hurt in familiar ways, why certain decisions lead to the same emotional endings. What once felt random begins to reveal meaning. What once felt chaotic begins to reveal structure. And with understanding comes responsibility. Because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. Once you recognize what holds you back, you cannot pretend ignorance. Reflection removes the comfort of blindness. It places truth gently but firmly in your hands, and truth asks you to respond. Emotionally, reflection can feel like standing in front of a mirror that shows not only your face, but your scars, your regrets, your hidden grief, your unspoken desires. You may feel waves of guilt for lost time, sadness for what you endured, longing for what could have been, fear of what must now change. The heart becomes tender, exposed, deeply aware of everything it has carried in silence. But this awareness is not meant to break you. It is meant to prepare you, because transformation is not simply becoming someone new. It is understanding who you have been, why you became that person, and what must be released so something truer can emerge. Without reflection, change is shallow, temporary, fragile. But with deep understanding, transformation takes root in the soul itself. Even spiritually, Every moment of reflection draws you closer to alignment. You begin to recognize where your heart drifted away from peace, where your choices moved away from sincerity, where your fears replaced trust. Reflection softens resistance. It humbles the ego. It opens space for guidance to enter. Breakthrough is not a sudden explosion of change. It is the quiet result of many moments of honest reflection accumulating inside you. Moments when you chose awareness over distraction, truth over comfort, stillness over escape. Moments when you allowed yourself to feel fully, to understand deeply, to sit patiently with what is real, instead of rushing toward what is easy. And slowly, almost invisibly, something shifts. The weight you carry begins to make sense. The confusion that once overwhelmed you begins to organize into clarity. The pain that once felt meaningless begins to reveal its lessons. You begin to see not only what must change, but why it must change, and that understanding gives your transformation depth, direction, purpose. Because real breakthrough is not just movement, it is awakened awareness moving with intention. It is clarity shaping action. It is understanding guiding growth. It is the soul rising, not from impulse, but from insight, from the courage to look within again and again, to sit with your thoughts, your memories, your patterns, your prayers, your silence, letting awareness deepen, letting truth unfold, letting understanding expand, until something inside you becomes ready to shift, ready to release, ready to transform, ready to become. Fear is not only something you endure, it is something that points. It signals direction. It reveals where your life is asking you to move, even when your comfort begs you to stay still. What you fear most often sits at the edge of your next expansion, guarding the doorway to growth, purpose, and transformation. Think about it. Fear rarely appears where nothing matters. You do not feel intense fear about things that carry no meaning for you. You feel it when something is important, when something has the power to change you, when something touches the deepest desires of your heart. Fear rises where significance lives. It stands at the boundary between the familiar life you know and the greater life you sense is possible but have not yet stepped into. What if fear is not warning you to retreat, but guiding you toward what your soul needs most? Sometimes fear points to hidden potential, the opportunity to speak when you have always stayed silent, the chance to try when you have always doubted yourself, the moment to trust when past pain taught you to close your heart. These moments feel terrifying not because they are wrong, but because they demand growth you have never experienced before. Fear marks the places where your identity is being stretched, where old limitations are being challenged, where the version of you that has survived until now must evolve into something stronger, wiser, and more aligned with who you were created to become. There is something deeply spiritual about this guidance. Allah does not always guide you through comfort. Sometimes guidance arrives as restlessness, as unease, as a quiet stirring inside your chest that refuses to let you remain where you are. Fear can be part of that stirring, a signal that life is asking more from you, a sign that you are being invited towards something meaningful, even if you cannot yet see the full path ahead. The prophets walked paths filled with uncertainty, yet those paths led to purpose. Difficulty did not mean misdirection. Discomfort did not mean abandonment. Sometimes what feels overwhelming is simply the weight of significance, the awareness that something important is unfolding, something that will shape who you become. Emotionally, this can feel confusing. Everything in your body may say asterisk, stay safe, stay small, stay where nothing can hurt you. Asterisk, but something deeper whispers asterisk, move, grow, trust, step forward. Asterisk, and that inner conflict creates tension, a sacred tension between fear and possibility. If you listen carefully, fear often points very specifically. It points to the conversation you keep postponing, the decision you keep delaying, the dream you keep minimizing, the change you keep resisting. It highlights exactly where movement is needed, exactly where courage must be activated, exactly where life is waiting for your participation. Avoiding fear often means avoiding the opportunity hidden behind it. When you turn away, the doorway remains closed. The lesson remains unlearned. The growth remains unrealized. But when you lean in, when you seek to understand what your fear is pointing toward, you begin to see direction where there once seemed only danger. Fear can show you where your strengths are waiting to be discovered, where resilience is ready to form, where faith is ready to deepen, where your dependence on Allah becomes more sincere, more alive, more real than ever before. Because when you walk towards something that frightens you with trust in Him, every step becomes an act of surrender, an act of courage, an act of alignment with purpose greater than comfort. And often the places that scare you most hold the greatest potential for meaning. The risk of failure also holds the possibility of growth. The risk of heartbreak also holds the possibility of love. The risk of change also holds the possibility of becoming who you were never able to be before. Fear does not always mean stop. Sometimes it means asterisk, this matters. Asterisk, sometimes it means asterisk, pay attention. Asterisk, sometimes it means asterisk, there is something here you cannot find anywhere else. Asterisk, when you begin to understand fear instead of fleeing from it, it transforms from a barrier into a compass. It no longer blocks your path, it reveals your direction. It no longer traps you in hesitation, it invites you into movement. It becomes a signal, a marker, a guide quietly pointing toward the places where growth is waiting, where purpose is forming, where unseen doors are standing just beyond the limits of your comfort, waiting for the moment you gather the courage to step closer, to look more deeply, to trust more fully, to move toward what once terrified you and discover what was waiting there all along, just beyond the edge of what felt safe, just beyond the place where fear first began to rise. Fear will visit all of us again and again, but now you know the secret. Understanding it is the key. Don't run from it, don't suppress it, study it, embrace it, and use it to fuel your rise. Your fear is not a barrier, it's a guidepost to the life you were destined to live. Step forward because your courage is waiting on the other side.